Millionaire's dinner date with Mistress at the restaurant, interrupted when pregnant wife arrives. Secrets have a way of unveiling themselves at the worst possible moments. Under the shimmering chandeliers of L'Ambroisie in downtown Manhattan, a wealthy husband believed he had orchestrated the perfect evening with his mistress, a clandestine rendezvous shielded by discreet waitstaff and hushed alcoves. Yet fate has a peculiar sense of timing. On this fateful night, his pregnant wife decided to dine at the very same restaurant, drawn by an inexplicable craving for French cuisine. As violin strings reverberated through the softly lit rooms, hearts collided and reputations trembled. The truth emerged in a single, unforgiving flash, threatening to shatter their world forever. Christopher Montclair was never one to accept an ordinary life. The son of a tireless, single mother in a cramped neighborhood on the outskirts of Boston, he learned early that ambition demanded sacrifice. Standing on street corners as a teenager, watching the shiny cars of corporate executives speed by, he vowed that one day he would have everything he desired: wealth, power, and respect. Through scholarships and fierce determination, Christopher graduated top of his class in finance, eventually launching Montclair Holdings in Manhattan. By his mid-30s, he was a millionaire many times over. His personal life seemed equally charmed. 3 years ago, he met and married Evelyn Rosenberg, now Evelyn Montclair, a former dancer of quiet elegance. Though her dancing career ended after a knee injury, she channeled her passion into philanthropic work. Evelyn, cherishing her pregnancy, hoped Christopher would become as devoted a father as he was a businessman. Yet, in the shadows of success, Christopher grew restless. He craved novelty. The high-stakes deals and relentless boardroom battles sharpened his appetite for risk, and soon that appetite leaked into his personal affairs. He began an illicit relationship with Ariel Romano, a seductive real estate agent known among New York's elite. Ariel was everything Christopher's respectable life was not: spontaneous, daring, and entirely unconcerned with social norms. Their affair started innocently enough, a harmless flirtation over luxury property listings, but it escalated. Before long, they were meeting in penthouse apartments and exclusive hotel suites, each encounter more secretive than the last. Evelyn remained oblivious, preoccupied with decorating the nursery and planning a charity ball for underprivileged art students. She yearned only for a joyful life with Christopher and their unborn child, trusting wholeheartedly in her husband's devotion. Even Veronica Parker, Evelyn's closest friend and the woman who had introduced her to Christopher, saw no signs of infidelity. The Montclairs appeared the picture of marital bliss. But on one crisp spring evening, everything would unravel at L'Ambroisie, the city's famed French restaurant. Ariel had insisted they dine somewhere a little more public, claiming she was tired of feeling like a secret. Christopher, flirting with danger, agreed. Neither realized that Evelyn, compelled by an inexplicable craving, would walk through the same doors that very night, setting off a chain reaction that would upend all their lives. Christopher rose early, as he did each morning, sipping dark roast coffee, while reviewing urgent emails from Montclair Holdings. He anticipated a day of delicate negotiations for a multi-million-dollar real estate venture. But overshadowing the business chatter was a text from Ariel: "Don't forget tonight. Tables booked at L'Ambroisie, 8 p.m. sharp. No more excuses." He felt a ripple of unease. He was adept at compartmentalizing his affair, slotting illicit moments into the corners of his schedule. Yet the gravity of Ariel's request, dining with her at a restaurant known for its notable clientele, made him twitch with apprehension. Still, the allure of Ariel's presence overrode his caution. Meanwhile, across the city, Evelyn was experiencing an entirely different morning. At 7 months pregnant, her body felt foreign, each movement more deliberate. She had been consumed with organizing a charity auction that would fund arts programs in struggling schools. She felt the baby move frequently a source of endless wonder, and her devotion to both the child and Christopher remained unwavering. Still, on this particular morning, she sensed an odd restlessness. She tried calling Christopher, hoping to discuss potential baby names or simply hear the reassuring sound of his voice. He answered with what she recognized as his professional tone, and after a few rushed pleasantries, he ended the call. She felt a pang of disappointment, but quickly reminded herself that he was under immense business pressure. In her philanthropic circles, Evelyn was planning to host a gala for influential donors. Veronica Parker, always her supportive friend, texted her an idea for the event theme. Evelyn responded enthusiastically, pressing the phone against her baby bump, as though the child could somehow absorb her excitement. That afternoon, as she concluded a meeting with event planners, a sudden craving struck her French cuisine with rich sauces and decadent pastries. Normally, she would wait for Christopher to propose a date night, but something about her restlessness, about the baby's insistent kicks, pushed her to be spontaneous. She recalled overhearing a friend mention l'Ambroisie. Evelyn decided she would simply go on her own, or perhaps invite Veronica for company. The decision that seemed so innocent in her mind would soon set the stage for a night that none of them would forget. At Montclair Holdings, Christopher stood at the head of a glass-walled conference room, projecting confidence as he presented to potential investors. He had a gift for weaving numbers into compelling narratives, painting visions of acquisitions and profits. Yet, beneath the polished exterior, his thoughts kept returning to the evening ahead. He remembered Ariel's parting words from their last meeting. "If you're not serious about us, tell me now." He had responded by promising that they'd have a special dinner soon, something more than a hasty meeting at a nondescript hotel. His intention was to placate her, to keep the delicate balance between mistress and wife intact for just a little longer. Across Manhattan, Ariel prepared with determined focus. She selected a daring backless black dress, paired with a statement necklace. She scheduled a blowout for her glossy raven hair at a chic salon. Every detail was meticulously chosen to reinforce her place in Christopher's world, whether he was ready to publicly acknowledge it or not. At exactly 6:30 p.m., Christopher's driver navigated through rush-hour traffic to pick him up outside Montclair Holdings. Sliding into the back seat of the Mercedes, Christopher loosened his tie, breathing out a tense sigh. He texted Ariel, "On my way. See you soon," she responded with a single heart emoji. That tiny symbol made him feel both excited and uneasy. Unbeknownst to either of them, Evelyn was also en route to l'Ambroisie. She sat in the back of a taxi, tapping the driver's shoulder to confirm the restaurant address. The baby kicked wildly, making her smile. She had no reservations, but hoped a table would be available. Pregnant cravings, after all, felt urgent. She made a mental note to tell Christopher about her impromptu evening, imagining he would find the story endearing. "I just had to have French cuisine." Fate, however, was weaving its own narrative. 3 people, each with their own expectations and secrets, were converging on the same upscale dining room. Crystal chandeliers would illuminate hidden truths. The hush of piano music would underscore unrehearsed confessions, and a single dinner would become the catalyst for a storm of revelations. L'Ambroisie boasted an ambiance of refined opulence, marble floors polished to a sheen, warm candlelight flickering from crystal sconces, and waitstaff gliding seamlessly between linen-draped tables. Christopher arrived first, stepping inside with an air of practiced confidence. He approached the maitre d', who recognized him instantly. Although Christopher had called to make a reservation under Ariel's name, his reputation preceded him. "Good evening, Monsieur Montclair. This way, please," the maitre d' said, discreetly gesturing to a secluded corner table partially hidden by tall floral arrangements. Slipping him a folded $100 bill, Christopher quietly requested privacy. The maitre d' nodded, accustomed to the demands of high-profile patrons. Minutes later, Ariel appeared, turning heads in her sleek black gown. She caught Christopher's eye, and the corner of her mouth lifted in a smile of victory. Desire, something in between. Sliding into the booth beside him, she kissed him on the cheek, ignoring the subtle glances from a nearby table. They placed their drink orders, a glass of red for her, a neat whiskey for him. In hushed tones, they exchanged pleasantries that masked deeper agendas. Meanwhile, at the front desk, Evelyn entered, dressed simply in a navy wrap dress that accommodated her growing belly. She carried herself with quiet poise, politely asking if there was room for a walk-in. Seeing her condition and gentle demeanor, the hostess arranged a small table near a window. Evelyn sat, relieved to have satisfied her sudden craving. She rubbed her stomach, an affectionate gesture toward the child within, before turning to the menu. As the evening progressed, Christopher and Ariel settled into a tension-laced conversation. She demanded clarity. "We've been doing this for months. When do I stop being your secret?" Christopher hedged, knowing how precarious it was. He promised he'd figure it out soon, glancing around nervously. Sensing his discomfort, Ariel arched a brow. "He's anxious about something," she thought. Little did she know his worst fears were about to materialize. On the other side of the dining room, Evelyn savored a warm bowl of French onion soup, blissfully unaware of the drama, unfolding just a few tables away. Yet the safety of her ignorance would vanish the moment she rose to stretch her legs, inadvertently glimpsing the silhouette of her husband leaning intimately close to another woman. Veronica Parker, ever the loyal friend, had sensed something off in Christopher's behavior for weeks. During casual chats with Evelyn, she picked up on small inconsistencies, late meetings, hurried phone calls, half-baked excuses. Though not prone to paranoia, Veronica felt an unsettling suspicion take root. It was sheer coincidence that she found herself near Lamboisie that very evening. She had just wrapped up a meeting of her own, and as she prepared to hail a taxi, she noticed Evelyn stepping inside the famed French restaurant. At first, Veronica felt delighted. How wonderful that Evelyn is treating herself. Then a prick of concern. Christopher rarely mentioned dinner plans. Why is Evelyn here alone? Unable to quell her instincts, Veronica slipped into the restaurant's foyer. She told herself she merely wanted to say hello, but a deeper part of her admitted she was on high alert. The hostess directed her to Evelyn's table with a polite smile. "Veronica!" Evelyn exclaimed softly, surprised but pleased. "What are you doing here?" Her eyes shone with a mix of joy and relief. She hadn't wanted to eat by herself, not in her pregnant state, and here was the perfect companion. Veronica sat down, ordering a glass of sparkling water. "I was nearby and thought I'd pop in. How are you?" Her gaze flickered across the room, always scanning, as if her subconscious was searching for a reason behind her nagging worry. Evelyn giggled lightly. "I'm good, just had this craving for French food. The baby's definitely shaping my taste buds." She patted her belly. "Christopher's schedule is crazy, so I came on my own." Veronica's heart sank. Where exactly is Christopher, she wondered. She wanted to ask, but something in Evelyn's radiant smile held her back. Instead, she made small talk, describing her day. Still, her eyes continued to roam the tables, catching glimpses of couples in hushed conversation. A flicker of movement in a corner booth grabbed her attention, a man with a familiar profile, leaning in close to a raven-haired woman. Veronica's pulse quickened. No, it can't be. She craned her neck for a better look, hoping to be proven wrong. The next few seconds would confirm her worst fears. The man was Christopher Montclair, and the woman was most definitely not Evelyn. Veronica felt her stomach clench as she processed the sight of Christopher with another woman. She watched him discreetly tilt his head toward the raven-haired stranger, noting the conspiratorial closeness between them. Everything about their posture screamed intimacy. Her chest tightened. How could he do this, especially with Evelyn pregnant? Struggling to maintain composure, Veronica turned her attention back to her friend. Evelyn, noticing the tension in Veronica's face, frowned. "Veronica, are you okay? You look pale." Evelyn's concern proved too much for Veronica's conscience. She couldn't lie, but she also didn't want to devastate her friend in front of half the restaurant. Finally, mustering her composure, she took a steadying breath. "Evelyn, I need you to stay calm," she began quietly, her voice trembling. "But I think you should stand up and look over there." She subtly gestured toward the corner booth. Evelyn's eyes widened. She turned in her seat, scanning for whatever had caused Veronica's distress. At first, she saw only well-dressed patrons engaged in their own quiet conversations. Then, out of the corner of her eye, she recognized Christopher's distinct silhouette. Her heart skipped a beat. Sitting across from him was an elegant woman in a low-cut black dress, holding his hand atop the table. The vision of Christopher Montclair in an intimate setting with someone who was very much not his wife assaulted Evelyn's senses. Time seemed to slow. A rush of adrenaline surged through her, intensifying every sight, every sound. She watched as Christopher reached for his glass, tension etched across his face. Ariel murmured something, her lips barely moving. It was a private moment that felt suddenly, violently exposed to Evelyn's horrified stare. "Veronica." "Oh my God," Evelyn whispered, tears already forming. Shock coursed through her, making her limbs go cold. She struggled to breathe, shaking her head as if trying to dispel a nightmarish illusion. Veronica placed a comforting hand on Evelyn's arm. "Listen, let's leave." "We can." But Evelyn stood abruptly, the scrape of her chair against the polished floor drawing a few curious glances. With an unsteady gait, she started toward Christopher's table. The hush of the restaurant seemed to envelop her like a cocoon of dread. Every step brought her closer to the moment that would fracture her life irreparably. Christopher, mid-sentence as he tried to placate Ariel, felt a shift in the air behind him. He turned, and the blood seemed to freeze in his veins. There stood Evelyn, tears shimmering in her eyes. The shock on her face was a mirror of his own stunned horror. Ariel, caught off guard, pulled her hand from Christopher's and straightened in her seat, her cheeks flushing under Evelyn's anguished gaze. The restaurant, previously filled with soft conversation, fell unnervingly silent. Even the waiters carrying trays of appetizers paused, sensing a sudden maelstrom of tension. For a long moment, no one spoke. Evelyn's voice finally emerged, brittle and trembling. "Christopher, what? What is going on?" She pressed one hand protectively over her rounded belly. Christopher stood, knocking over a half-filled whiskey glass in the process. Liquor spilled across the tablecloth, an apt visual for the unraveling scene. His mouth opened and closed helplessly. "Evelyn, I can explain," he sputtered, though no reasonable explanation could exist for his presence with Ariel. Ariel, her bravado faltering, pushed her chair back. She felt the piercing weight of guilt, especially when her eyes flicked to Evelyn's pregnant form. "I can't believe I'm part of this horrible spectacle," she thought, cheeks burning with shame. Veronica arrived, stepping between Evelyn and Christopher as if to shield her friend from further hurt. Her voice low and fierce, she hissed, "You better think carefully before you say another word, Christopher." Evelyn's gaze darted from her husband to the woman in black. She tried to reconcile the man she'd married, the one who tenderly touched her belly in anticipation of fatherhood, with this stranger. An avalanche of memories flooded her mind, their wedding vows, his excited reaction to her pregnancy test, the nights she fell asleep, believing he was working late for their future. Anger mingled with heartbreak in her quavering voice. "Who is she?" Evelyn demanded, even though part of her already knew. "How long?" Christopher swallowed hard. Around them, curious diners pretended not to stare, yet the spectacle was impossible to ignore. He stammered, "Evelyn, let's talk somewhere else, please." But Evelyn shook her head, tears spilling. "No. We talk here," she said, voice cracking. "Tell me everything." Caught in a swirl of public shame, Christopher realized there was no escape. The carefully constructed facade of his double life had just detonated, and he was left standing in the debris of his own deceit. The intensity of Evelyn's heartbreak slammed into Christopher like a tidal wave. He had always believed he could control every aspect of his life, orchestrate his marriage, his affair, his business. Now, under the glare of Lambrasie's chandeliers, that illusion crumbled. Ariel, her bravado gone, stared at her hands, wishing to vanish. She attempted a few words of apology but couldn't form them properly. The weight of Evelyn's tear-filled eyes was too much. Veronica, her arms wrapped protectively around Evelyn, shot Christopher an accusing glare. Was this worth it? Her question dripped with contempt. "You fool, Christopher! She's pregnant with your child." "How dare you?" Christopher raked a trembling hand through his hair. He turned to Ariel, then back to Evelyn, torn between the woman he had married and the woman he had seduced. He let out a shaky breath. "Evelyn, I swear I never intended." The words died in his throat, pathetically insufficient. Evelyn's tears flowed unchecked. Her voice trembled with equal parts, sorrow and fury. "How long has this been going on?" she demanded. A pained look crossed Christopher's face. He glanced at Ariel, who offered a single nod, giving him tacit permission to confess. 6 months, he admitted quietly, feeling a wave of shame crash over him. The color drained from Evelyn's cheeks, and she swayed slightly, forcing Veronica to steady her. 6 months. More than half the time she had been pregnant. The shock and betrayal stole her breath. Nearby diners exchanged glances, unsure whether to leave or linger in morbid fascination. One waiter, attempting to mask the tension, approached carefully to check on them, but Christopher waved him off. There was no delicate way to handle this meltdown. Evelyn's composure finally snapped. "How could you do this?" she whispered. "You lied to me every single day." She pressed a trembling hand against her belly. "What about this baby? Our future?" Christopher stepped forward, tears threatening to spill. "Evelyn, I'm so sorry. I messed up. I'll end it. This was a mistake, I swear." Veronica's voice cut in like a blade. "Not here. Let's get Evelyn out of this place," she said, her tone gentler when addressing her friend. "Come on, sweetheart. You need to breathe." Clinging to what little dignity remained, Evelyn turned away from Christopher, refusing to let him even touch her arm. Veronica guided her out of the restaurant, leaving Christopher and Ariel in a silence that felt like a funeral. Outside Lambrasie, Evelyn dissolved into sobs. The cool night air provided scant relief for her shattered composure. Veronica hailed a taxi, gently helping Evelyn inside. Concern etched into Veronica's features, her voice hushed and soothing. "We'll head to my apartment," she murmured, guiding her friend's hand. "You don't need to go back to him tonight." Inside the cab, Evelyn's tears ebbed into silence. Her eyes stared unfocused at the passing streetlights. Memories of her marriage replayed as snapshots, Christopher carrying her over the threshold of their penthouse after their honeymoon, laughing over burnt toast in the early mornings, the joy in his eyes when she announced her pregnancy. Had all of it been a lie, she wondered. She felt a hollow ache in her chest, overshadowed by the faint stirrings of the baby within her, a reminder that she now had to think of more than just herself. Meanwhile, Christopher stood on the curb outside L'Ambroisie, torn between chasing after Evelyn and consoling Ariel. Ariel quietly touched his arm. "I'll catch my own ride," she offered, voice subdued. "I need to go home." Christopher didn't stop her, his thoughts fully consumed by Evelyn's anguish. As he turned, paparazzi bulbs flashed. Someone had alerted them that a scandal was brewing. Already, a couple of opportunistic photographers had arrived, snapping pictures of the rattled millionaire in his finest suit, alone and exposed. Christopher ducked his head, heading quickly to his waiting Mercedes. He instructed his driver to follow Veronica's cab, but lost them in the congested avenues. He texted Evelyn, "I'm sorry. Please let me see you. Let's talk." Only silence returned. At Veronica's apartment, Evelyn nearly collapsed onto the sofa. She covered her face with shaking hands. Veronica hovered, wanting to provide comfort but unsure how. She made tea, placing a warm mug in front of Evelyn, who stared at it blankly. "Everything's going to be okay," Veronica attempted, though her own voice wavered with uncertainty. Evelyn's lips trembled. "I thought he loved me," she whispered. "I don't know how to deal with this, especially now with the baby." They sat together, two friends enveloped in heartbreak and confusion. Outside, the city buzzed with its usual energy, unaware of how drastically Evelyn Montclair's life had just changed. Evelyn stayed at Veronica's apartment that night, refusing to speak with Christopher despite his repeated calls and texts. She barely slept, haunted by visions of her husband with his mistress. Around dawn, she began rummaging through her phone for any evidence she might have missed: strange texts, unexplained receipts, or suspicious photos. Each new sign of deceit felt like a fresh laceration. By mid-morning, Veronica persuaded Evelyn to visit her obstetrician for a routine checkup, worried that the emotional toll could affect the pregnancy. Dr. Alicia Warren greeted Evelyn with gentle concern, running tests to ensure the baby remained healthy. Sensing the distress in her patient, Dr. Warren suggested counseling or a support group. Evelyn nodded absently, uncertain of how to move forward, only relieved to hear the baby's heartbeat was strong. Meanwhile, Christopher was in damage control mode on multiple fronts. At Montclair Holdings, the scandal had already begun circulating in hushed tones. A few tabloids picked up rumors of a marital dispute at a high-end restaurant. Christopher's PR team scrambled to deflect attention, but they could do little about the swirl of gossip. Some of his business associates, especially those with conservative values, expressed discomfort with the negative publicity. Desperate to reach Evelyn, he sent flowers and an apologetic note to Veronica's apartment. Veronica threw them in the trash without showing Evelyn, deciding her friend needed space rather than hollow gestures. She knew Christopher was likely frantic, but she had no sympathy left for him. Her priority was Evelyn's emotional and physical well-being. Ariel, too, found herself under scrutiny. She received a barrage of calls from curious acquaintances and media outlets. Mortified by the public shame, she decided to retreat. She took an impromptu leave of absence from her real estate firm, claiming family matters. Each time the phone rang, she felt a stab of guilt, recalling Evelyn's anguished face. In the midst of the chaos, Evelyn scrolled through social media posts announcing the next philanthropic event she was slated to host. Her name was front and center, lauded for generosity and compassion. The cruel irony struck her like a hammer. She was celebrated for her empathy while her own marriage was imploding. She found herself weeping softly, uncertain how to reconcile the life she had with the life she thought she had. 2 days later, Christopher finally managed a tense meeting with Evelyn. Exhausted from emotional turmoil, she agreed to see him at Veronica's apartment, on the condition that Veronica remained in the next room. She refused to face him alone. When Christopher arrived, he clutched a stack of papers, financial documents, property titles, and what looked like the beginnings of a legal separation agreement. Evelyn sat stiffly on the couch, arms folded protectively over her abdomen. Her eyes were red-rimmed but resolute. He sat opposite her, fidgeting with the papers as though they were a lifeline. Evelyn eyed, his throat constricted, and he had to force himself to meet her gaze. "I'm so sorry. I can't undo what I did, but I want to do whatever it takes to make things right." She held his stare, her voice quiet but unwavering. "Can you make it so that it never happened?" she asked, a rhetorical question laden with heartbreak. "Because that's the only thing I really want." Christopher felt tears prick his eyes. "I can't, but I'm prepared to give you anything, property, money, whatever, if it will at least make you feel secure. I know I violated your trust." Evelyn's lips tightened. "Trust was never about money. You think these papers fix the pain you caused?" She gestured at the documents. "I used to believe you were different from all those power-hungry men. Now I see that maybe I never knew you." He swallowed hard, guilt shredding him from within. "I know this is my fault. But please, let's try counseling. I want to be there for the baby. We don't have to decide everything right now. Just give me a chance to show you I can change." A tear slid down Evelyn's cheek, but her composure remained. "You want me to risk my heart again when I'm already shattered?" She placed a hand on her belly. "What about our child's future? You've given us every reason to doubt you." Christopher nodded, struggling for the right words. "I understand, but I'm not walking away from my child. We'll handle visitation, support whatever you think is best. I don't want to lose you." Evelyn's gaze flickered with pain. For a moment, she pictured a family dynamic where Christopher remained only a financial provider. The image twisted her stomach. "I need time," she finally said, voice shaky. "Time to decide if I can even tolerate you in my life, let alone as a partner." A fragile silence stretched, heavy with unresolved tension. Veronica, listening in from the hallway, knew that time might not heal all wounds, but it was the only possible path toward any semblance of reconciliation. Despite the devastation, life refused to pause. Evelyn pressed forward with her charity work, attending meetings and organizing her upcoming gala. Wherever she went, she kept a careful mask in place, never revealing the agony beneath. Only Veronica and a few other close friends knew the truth. Gossip columns continued to speculate about cracks in the Montclair marriage, but Evelyn refused to feed the stories, avoiding all interviews and appearances with Christopher. Meanwhile, Christopher focused on damage control at Montclair Holdings. Some clients, wary of scandal, quietly distanced themselves from deals. Competitors capitalized on rumors of instability, hoping to lure away Christopher's investors. For the first time, he realized how quickly a personal failing could destabilize his professional empire. He worked relentless hours, fueled by guilt and the fear of losing everything he had worked for. Amid this upheaval, Ariel Romano wrestled with her own shame and confusion. She had believed Christopher's assurances that his marriage was a hollow shell, yet seeing Evelyn face-to-face pregnant and weeping had shattered that illusion. Disgusted with herself, she tendered her resignation at the real estate firm. Some colleagues suspected a scandal, but she offered no explanations, determined to leave Manhattan for good. Months slipped by, and Evelyn's belly grew heavier. She maintained her separation from Christopher. At Veronica's urging, she agreed to a few couples counseling sessions. Meeting in a small, discreet office, they sat across from a gentle-voiced therapist named Dr. Amber Reynolds. Dr. Reynolds guided them through raw emotions, betrayal, remorse, fear of abandonment. Some sessions were explosive, with Evelyn storming out in tears. Others ended quietly, neither of them certain whether it was better to salvage their marriage or finalize a divorce. Still, one truth united them both: the baby. Christopher attended prenatal appointments whenever Evelyn allowed, sitting quietly in the exam room as the doctor explained each stage of development. They listened to the baby's heartbeat together, an echoing thrum that stirred conflicting feelings. Evelyn would sometimes catch a tear sliding down Christopher's cheek. In those fleeting moments, she'd recall the man she once adored. As her due date approached, Christopher organized the nursery in their penthouse, a heartbreaking gesture, since Evelyn refused to move back in. Yet he persisted, painting walls a soothing pastel, assembling a crib, folding tiny clothes. Each item felt like a plea to Evelyn, "Come home. Let me fix this." But she couldn't ignore the memory of him in that restaurant corner booth, whispering sweet nothings to another woman. One chilly evening, Veronica arrived at Evelyn's sublet with a worried expression. She had just learned from a mutual acquaintance that Ariel had left the city. Normally, Veronica wouldn't bother Evelyn with anything about Christopher's mistress, but something in the rumor stirred her curiosity. She apparently moved to a small town near the Canadian border, Veronica shared. Sipping tea in Evelyn's modest living room, she wants a fresh start. Evelyn's face remained impassive. "Good for her," she said quietly. Turning to the nursery corner, she'd set up a bassinet, a plush rocking chair. Despite her constant pain, she had prepared for the baby's arrival with methodical care. "At least she won't be here to ruin more marriages." Veronica nodded, but saw the flicker of unresolved hurt in her friend's eyes. The two women sat in pensive silence, interrupted only by Evelyn's slight wincer contraction, a false alarm. She had been experiencing Braxton Hicks contractions over the past week, a sign that her body was gearing up for labor. The true test arrived late one night when Evelyn felt an unmistakable, piercing pain. Her water broke in a rush of panic and excitement. She called Veronica, who sped over in her car, helping Evelyn gather her bag. They phoned Christopher, leaving a breathless voicemail. "We're going to the hospital. The baby's coming." Within half an hour, Christopher burst into the maternity ward. Veronica paced the hallway, wearing a look of relief when he finally appeared. Evelyn, already wheeled into a labor room, endured wave after wave of contractions. The medical team worked calmly, hooking her to monitors and administering pain management. Tentatively, Christopher approached her bedside, his eyes filled with genuine concern. "Evelyn," he whispered, leaning closer, "I'm here. Whatever you need, I'll do it." She clung to his hand, despite all that had happened. In that moment, the anger and heartbreak seemed secondary to the urgency of bringing new life safely into the world. Labor stretched for hours into the dawn. Christopher remained at Evelyn's side the entire time, wiping the sweat from her brow, murmuring words of encouragement. Veronica occasionally stepped in to offer moral support, then gave them space. Despite the swirl of broken trust, an unspoken truce settled over everyone. This child was more important than their wounds. Finally, as the sun rose, a piercing cry sliced through the tension. A baby boy, red-faced, wailing, alive, arrived in the care of skilled doctors. The room flooded with emotional release. Christopher's tears flowed freely, and Evelyn, trembling, reached out to hold the tiny, perfect life she had carried for 9 months. For a moment, they were united in awe, heartbreak suspended by this pure miracle. Andrew James Montclair became the center of Evelyn's universe in an instant. Holding him against her chest, she felt a profound love, unlike anything she had known. For Christopher, the moment he touched his son's delicate fingers, guilt and gratitude warred within him. "How could I have risked losing this?" he thought. He vowed silently never to fail his family again. The next few days at the hospital were a haze of feeding schedules, nurse visits, and excited friends offering congratulations. Veronica arrived with flowers and a flurry of kisses for the baby, tears of relief sparkling in her eyes. Even a few well-meaning acquaintances from Evelyn's charity circle dropped by, trying not to mention the scandal that had nearly overshadowed this precious event. Evelyn remained guarded around Christopher. She allowed him to hold Andrew, to change diapers under the nurse's guidance, but they barely spoke about anything beyond the baby's needs. Late at night, when Andrew slept in the bassinet beside her hospital bed, Evelyn stared at the ceiling, rehashing the heartbreak at Lamboisie. She felt torn between the father Christopher was already becoming and the husband who had deceived her so thoroughly. On the day of discharge, Christopher insisted on driving Evelyn and Andrew to her sublet. He had purchased a top-of-the-line car seat, which he installed himself, triple-checking every safety measure. During the ride, the baby dozed, and Evelyn stared at the city streets, wondering how they had reached this point, a new family already strained by betrayal. At the sublet, Christopher carried Andrew inside, carefully placing him in a prepared bassinet. The space was small, filled with baby essentials and a sense of transition. He lingered near the doorway, unsure if he was welcome to stay. Evelyn offered no immediate invitation. Exhausted, she lowered herself onto the couch, clutching a pillow. Christopher cleared his throat. "I'll, leave you both to rest," he said softly. "But call me if you need anything. I mean it, anything." Evelyn nodded, not yet ready to face the future of their relationship. She whispered, "Thank you, more for his help with Andrew than for any sense of forgiveness." In the hush that followed, Christopher departed, leaving Evelyn to cradle Andrew, alone but fiercely determined to protect her child's future. The question of whether Christopher could be part of that future remained tangled in layers of uncertainty. The next few weeks brought a delicate dance of co-parenting. Christopher visited almost daily, scheduled around Evelyn's comfort level. He offered to cover medical bills and any extras, but she accepted only what concerned Andrew. Pride and lingering anger prevented her from letting him solve her problems with money. Instead, she insisted on doing as much herself as possible, perhaps to prove she was capable without him. Amid the bleary-eyed nights and relentless feeding cycles, Evelyn discovered an unexpected resilience. Veronica helped too, often sleeping on the couch when Evelyn was overwhelmed. Together, they navigated Andrew's first baths, doctor checkups, and the challenges of infant colic. Through it all, Christopher hovered, ready to step in when permitted. He brought groceries, took out the trash, changed Andrew's diapers, anything to ease Evelyn's burden. Their couples' therapy sessions resumed, now with Andrew sometimes napping in a stroller in the corner. The therapist encouraged them to talk about rebuilding trust, if that was something Evelyn desired. At first, she remained silent, arms folded. Christopher laid bare his remorse, explaining how he had allowed ambition and insecurity to derail him. "I always felt like I had to chase excitement," he confessed, voice cracking. "I was scared of losing who I was, but I lost myself anyway." Evelyn found her defenses softening slightly. She couldn't forget the image of Christopher cradling Andrew during those first moments of life. Underneath her betrayal lay a fraction of hope that the man she loved still existed, changed by fatherhood. One evening, after Christopher helped put Andrew to sleep, Evelyn surprised him by inviting him to stay for a late dinner. They sat in her small kitchen, bowls of reheated pasta steaming between them. The conversation was halting, but less hostile than before. She recounted a funny story from the day, describing how Andrew nearly kicked over a pile of clean laundry. Christopher laughed, the sound tinged with relief. By the end of the meal, Evelyn found herself thinking, could we find a way back from this? The question lingered, unanswered, but the tension in the air softened. Even small steps seemed like monumental progress. If they continued like this, there might be a chance, slim, fragile, but real, that their fractured love could be pieced back together. As Andrew reached 3 months old, his joyous giggles illuminated the sublet's every corner. Evelyn, while still hurting, couldn't deny the bond forming between father and son. Christopher had become gentle, patient attributes she never quite associated with his cutthroat persona in finance. Their therapist remarked on Christopher's transformation, observing that fatherhood and remorse had awakened a deeper empathy within him. Yet, uncertainty persisted. Evelyn had not rescinded the legal separation documents, and Christopher respected her autonomy. He took each day as an opportunity to prove himself, not through grand gestures of wealth, but through consistent presence. He sometimes arrived unannounced, bearing diapers or homemade soup from his newly hired chef food that he claimed to have tasted first to ensure it was mild enough for breastfeeding mothers. Evelyn rolled her eyes at times, but also smiled at his earnestness. Veronica noted the change too, remarking privately to Evelyn, "He seems genuine. Still, be careful." Evelyn appreciated the warning, especially considering the heartbreak that still lay raw within her. But in rare, unguarded moments, she found herself reminiscing about the early days of their courtship, the laughter, the spontaneous dates, the sense of partnership they once shared. A pivotal moment came when Montclair Holdings hosted a public charity event benefiting the very arts program Evelyn championed. Unsure if she should attend, Evelyn hesitated, remembering the media speculation around their marriage. But Christopher insisted he wanted to honor her contributions publicly, inviting her to stand by his side on stage as they presented a check. After deliberation, Evelyn decided to appear, if only to spotlight her cause. The night of the event, she dressed in an elegant yet modest gown, leaving Andrew with Veronica's trusted babysitter. Stepping onto the stage before a glittering crowd, she felt her heart race. Christopher introduced her with genuine pride, crediting her dedication and philanthropic spirit. His voice wavered when he mentioned the birth of their son and how crucial family support was to his success. Surprisingly, the audience erupted in applause, and for a moment, Evelyn stood beside Christopher, a united front. The tabloids, snapping photos, churned out headlines about a reconciliation in progress. Yet, beyond the cameras, Evelyn whispered to Christopher, "This doesn't mean everything's fixed. We still have a long way to go." He nodded solemnly. "I know." Then he looked at her with an intensity that made her breath catch. "But I'm not giving up, ever." She felt a flicker of warmth in her chest, a sensation she almost dared to call hope. Slowly, deliberately, Evelyn allowed herself to consider the possibility of forgiveness. It was not a decision she reached lightly. The wound of betrayal ran deep, and she would not pretend it could be erased. But the idea of giving Andrew a chance at a unified home pulled at her heartstrings, and Christopher's unwavering devotion offered a light at the end of a dark tunnel. They continued therapy, exploring the threads of their past that had led to the affair. Christopher spoke about his childhood abandonment issues and the hunger for validation that fueled his restless pursuits. Evelyn opened up about her fear of losing her identity, especially after leaving her dance career. Sometimes the sessions were soaked in tears. Other times they discovered small joys, like shared memories of their honeymoon or comedic recollections of learning to dance together in their living room. When Andrew turned 6 months old, Evelyn tentatively suggested that Christopher move back in, not permanently, but for a trial period. She wanted to see if they could coexist as a family without the weight of the penthouse's history. Christopher, both elated and nervous, brought only the essentials. He spent nights rocking Andrew to sleep, early mornings preparing coffee for Evelyn, and afternoons trying to help with laundry or errands, tasks he once dismissed as trivial. They grew closer in small, everyday ways, laughing at Andrew's attempts to crawl, clinking coffee cups in the morning, occasionally brushing hands in the kitchen. One crisp autumn afternoon, they took Andrew to Central Park, Watching him marvel at the leaves, they shared an emotional moment on a bench, reflecting on how far they'd come from that disastrous night at L'Ambroisie. Evelyn realized she still loved Christopher, albeit cautiously. She saw a man changed by regret and shaped by fatherhood. Feeling the warmth of that revelation, Evelyn leaned her head on his shoulder, letting out a soft sigh. Christopher kissed her temple, tears glistening in his eyes. Both were aware they still bore scars, but maybe, just maybe, those scars could become markers of growth, rather than perpetual reminders of pain. In time, they decided to renew their vows, not as a grand spectacle, but as a quiet affirmation among close friends. On a terrace overlooking the city, they exchanged promises that were raw and real, acknowledging past hurt while looking forward with hope. Andrew cooed in Veronica's arms, the living symbol of their second chance. And so, the millionaire's dinner date with his mistress, once a scandal that threatened to tear apart two lives, became the crucible for a deeper love. Where once there was betrayal, there emerged a renewed bond. It was neither perfect nor guaranteed, but for Christopher and Evelyn Montclair, it was worth every effort to restore what they nearly lost forever. When relationships stand on the precipice, choices define whether we fall apart or fight our way back. Christopher and Evelyn Montclair discovered that heartbreak can crack even the strongest foundations, but it can also illuminate hidden fractures in need of repair. Their journey from a disastrous dinner rendezvous to a quietly renewed vow taught them that love alone doesn't survive. It demands humility, steady work, and the willingness to see each other anew. In the unguarded moments, midnight feedings, heartfelt therapy sessions, or simple acts of kindness, they found the fragments of trust that still remained. Their story reveals a universal truth. Sometimes, the path to healing runs through our deepest wounds. Share your thoughts below. Do you believe in second chances after betrayal?
Imagine walking into the most lavish baby shower you've ever seen. Crystal chandeliers twinkling above towers of pastel macarons, designer goodie bags lining each seat, and a guest list that reads like a who's who of society's elite. But there's a dark secret beneath all that sparkle. The woman throwing this extravaganza is not the mother-to-be's best friend. She's the millionaire's mistress, and the mother-to-be. She's out of the picture, or so everyone thinks, until suddenly the doors swing open. In strides the real pregnant wife, clutching a marriage license that's about to unravel every lie in this glitzy room. Welcome to the scandal. Damien Blackwell wasn't born into wealth. He fought for it, with the kind of ruthless ambition that made him as feared as he was admired. Standing at 6'2", with carefully styled jet black hair, Damien possessed an intensity that could either captivate or intimidate, depending on which side of his generosity you landed on. By age 35, he had turned a small real estate venture into a sprawling empire. His name was whispered at exclusive charity balls, and he was recognized by moguls in the business world. Tabloid columns loved to label him a self-made millionaire with a heart of stone, yet society columns fawned over him as the unstoppable visionary on the rise. Despite the rumors swirling around him, people craved his presence. They invited him to their galas and philanthropic events, hoping a portion of his Midas touch might rub off. He'd appear in the company of A-list celebrities. Oprah Winfrey once interviewed him on a short segment, calling him the real deal, and he'd been spotted at a fundraiser sitting next to Bill Gates discussing global real estate strategies. His was a name that opened doors, sealed deals, and turned heads. But behind the veneer of polished success lay a tangled personal life. Damien was married, though not everyone in his social circle knew it. And he also had a mistress, a younger woman named Charmaine Delgado, who was cunning enough to stand by his side when it mattered and discreet enough to remain in the shadows until she chose not to. It all began one deceptively quiet morning in their New York penthouse. Damien sipping his black coffee, looking over spreadsheets of property acquisitions. Charmaine flipping through a luxury magazine, her eyes lingering on an article about extravagant parties. A dazzling idea began to form in her mind that would soon lead to chaos. The quiet secret of Damien's life was his marriage to Elizabeth Redwood. At 28, Elizabeth exuded a calm, regal grace. She had grown up in a well-respected family in Boston. Her father, Jonathan Redwood, was a high-powered attorney, and her mother, Catherine Redwood, was a socialite renowned for her philanthropic work. Unlike Damien, Elizabeth had come from money, but she carried her privilege with humility. She taught underprivileged children art in a non-profit school. The marriage was low-key. Elizabeth had never been much for public fanfare, and Damien was all too willing to keep his personal life private to protect his empire from scrutiny. Over the years, they had cultivated an image of a silent, behind-the-scenes couple, rarely photographed together, rarely attending events hand in hand. Some thought they were just close business partners. Others assumed they had parted ways. Only a few intimates knew the truth. But Elizabeth was pregnant, something she had confided only in her close friend, Bella Thompson. They were planning to tell the world in their own time, but the pregnancy was a delicate matter. She had suffered 2 miscarriages in the past, and the heartbreak made her cautious. So Elizabeth kept a low profile, preferring to rest in the couple's Connecticut estate, rather than remain in the hustle and bustle of the city. Damien's visits to Connecticut had grown infrequent. The demands of his business took him overseas, so he said. Elizabeth trusted him mostly. She had chosen to focus on her health, certain that once the baby arrived, their marriage would find renewed purpose. What she didn't know was that Damien wasn't merely away on business. He was in Manhattan often with Charmaine Delgado on his arm. And Charmaine was hatching a plan that would rattle the foundations of everything Elizabeth believed about her marriage. Charmaine Delgado was a woman who knew how to make an entrance. With chestnut brown hair styled in sleek waves, impeccable designer outfits, and a fierce determination in her hazel eyes, she had carved out a place for herself in high society, albeit on the margins of respectability. People whispered that she was Damien's mistress, but they also noticed that her circle included the wives of major hedge fund managers, fashion influencers, and even small-time celebrities who adored her lavish dinner parties. She wasn't satisfied with being a well-kept secret. Her ultimate goal was to become the next Mrs. Blackwell. She loved the taste of power she enjoyed at Damien's side. The hush money, the compliments, the exclusive events he brought her to under the pretense of a business associate. She wanted more than stolen weekends in a Paris penthouse or summers at a Tuscan villa. She longed to replace Elizabeth Redwood, whom she considered dull and undeserving of the empire Damien was building. "Have you thought about throwing a party?" Charmaine cooed one morning as she lounged in Damien's penthouse, the city skyline glittering behind her. A big one, with all the right people. It could be a statement event. Maybe a fundraiser for your new philanthropic arm. Damien, engrossed in reading a financial report, merely raised an eyebrow. "You know those events are important, but we have an entire pep team that organizes them. I don't need more noise around me," she persisted. "We need to show the world you're a man of the people, not just a cutthroat deal-maker. And you know I can handle logistics. Our friend Ariana Roswell from the Van Cleef & Arpels brand could sponsor part of it. "It'll be huge, darling." He shrugged. "I'll consider it. Right now, I'm more focused on finalizing a land acquisition in Dubai." But that was just the first step of Charmaine's plan. She knew a single social event wouldn't be enough to stir up the scandal that might eventually push Elizabeth aside. She needed something bigger, something personal. And an opportunity was about to present itself in the most unexpected way. Miles away, Elizabeth Redwood was experiencing a new wave of morning sickness in the Connecticut estate. Damien's presence had dwindled to phone calls, text messages. They were cordial, affectionate, even, but detached. He assured her he was overworked and traveling internationally, promising that once deals were settled, he'd be back for a calm, quiet life together, especially when the baby arrived. Late one night, Elizabeth felt an unsettling pang in her chest that had nothing to do with pregnancy. It was a sense that something was off. Her friend Bella had dropped by earlier in the day, showing her social media photos from a party Charmaine Delgado had thrown. Charmaine's Instagram stories were suspiciously replete with hints of a wealthy backer. The location was suspiciously similar to a penthouse Elizabeth recognized as one of Damien's properties in Manhattan. Elizabeth tried to stifle the jealousy, telling herself that this was just a business associate hosting a private function. But the uneasy feeling refused to go away. After all, rumors about an affair had trickled through her social circle for some time, but she had always dismissed them as petty gossip. Now the evidence was piling up, pictures of Charmaine in lavish settings that Elizabeth knew only Damien could access. She placed a hand on her small baby bump. With the child's gentle fluttering in her womb, it felt like both a promise and a reminder. She and Damien were a family. They had a future. She told herself, "I have to trust him. Stress is the last thing I need right now." But doubt is a seed that once planted grows rapidly, especially in the lonely quiet of a large estate where your husband's presence is rare. One drizzly afternoon, Charmaine discovered the depth of Damien's secret. A single oversight on his part, he had left a series of open messages on his laptop while he stepped away to answer a phone call. Charmaine saw a digital note from Damien's assistant congratulating him on his wife's pregnancy. Charmaine's heart clenched. She knew Elizabeth existed, but she hadn't realized Elizabeth was pregnant. Jealous fury simmered beneath her carefully poised exterior. She paced the penthouse, chewing on her glossed lip. Eyes narrowed. "He's going to have a baby with that woman," she hissed under her breath. "What about me?" But soon a twisted idea formed in her cunning mind. She decided to use this pregnancy to her advantage. If she could insert herself into the baby's life, she might become indispensable. And so she hatched a plan, so audacious it felt almost delirious, host a baby shower. For Elizabeth, yes, but secretly orchestrated by Charmaine herself and used as a platform to humiliate the pregnant wife or force a confrontation in public. She cornered Damien one evening with a proposition. "You never do anything big for Elizabeth," she said sweetly. "Why don't we celebrate her pregnancy? It'll be good, Pierre. Everyone in your social circle will know you're a family man. You're committed to your wife." He stiffened. "Elizabeth is very private. Besides, she's in Connecticut, and you know she's had complications before. She wouldn't want a big show." "Oh, hush," Charmaine insisted. "We'll make it a small, intimate affair. A high-end baby shower with carefully vetted guests. I'll handle everything discreetly. It'll be a great show of unity, especially for the tabloids. You could even do it at one of your properties to keep it private." Damien frowned, torn. "I don't think Elizabeth would appreciate it if a stranger organizes her baby shower." Charmaine placed a manicured hand on his shoulder. "Sweetheart, you need to show your support to your wife. Let me help. I'll ensure it's tasteful." No press, just close friends. I'll do all the heavy lifting. Besides, if you throw a shower for her, it'll erase all those silly rumors about me and you." Her eyes sparkled with the hidden motive, a chance to stake her claim in his life, to show Elizabeth and the world that she was more than just a rumor. Damien was reluctant, but eventually conceded, thinking it might indeed quell whispers of scandal if there appeared to be a friendly relationship between the two women. Charmaine couldn't help but smirk when he agreed. She quickly sent out invitations, making sure to invite only select members of high society and a few of Elizabeth's acquaintances. She didn't invite Elizabeth's family or closest friends. She wanted to keep the event's planning under her strict control. News of the upcoming baby shower spread quietly through upper-crust circles, almost as if it were a secret event for the select few. Elizabeth heard about it from Bella Thompson, who received an invitation by email. Elizabeth's confusion grew. A baby shower hosted by Charmaine Delgado. The name alone made her heart skip a beat. Instead of confronting Damien directly, Elizabeth decided to keep her composure. She confronted him calmly on a phone call. "Why is Charmaine Delgado organizing my baby shower?" Damien cleared his throat, his tone reassuring. "I wanted to do something special for you," Charmaine volunteered. "She's helping me out. I have so many business commitments, and you know she's got connections in event planning circles. She promised it would be small and refined." Elizabeth's gut twisted, but a part of her wanted to believe he was telling the truth, that Charmaine was merely a helpful business associate. She grudgingly agreed to attend, if only to avoid stress and hope for the best. After all, she had always wanted a moment to celebrate her pregnancy with friends. Maybe this was an olive branch. Maybe it would help her and Damien reconnect. But behind the scenes, Charmaine pulled every string to make this baby shower a spectacle. She selected an opulent venue, a palatial rooftop terrace belonging to one of Damien's real estate partners overlooking Central Park. She ordered pastel floral arrangements, towering centerpieces of orchids and roses imported from a prestigious florist in Paris. There would be a harpist, a string quartet, an array of gourmet amuse-bouches, and a cake so lavish it rivaled wedding tears. In the hush of her private thoughts, Charmaine planned her own unveiling. She would arrive looking stunning, the perfect hostess. She'd drop hints about her closeness with Damien to unnerve Elizabeth. And if all went according to plan, Elizabeth would be so overwhelmed she might even retreat, leaving Charmaine to bask in Damien's spotlight. As the date of the shower approached, Elizabeth felt an unshakable anxiety. She was 7 months pregnant, trying to remain calm for the sake of the baby. Bella accompanied her to Manhattan, insisting she shouldn't go alone given her fragile emotional state. They arrived at the luxury hotel where Damien had booked them a suite. When Elizabeth entered the penthouse suite, she found a note from Damien, apologizing that he wouldn't be able to join her immediately. He had an urgent business dinner. She sank into the plush sofa, tears threatening. Her hand instinctively rested on her belly, feeling the baby's gentle kicks. Bella poured her a glass of sparkling water. "Damien's being distant again," Bella said softly. "Do you trust him?" "Lizzie." Elizabeth blinked back tears. "I'm trying to. Everything is so confusing right now. He insists he loves me, wants this baby. Yet I see Charmaine in all his public appearances, and now she's hosting my baby shower." Bella offered a reassuring arm around her shoulder. "Tomorrow, you'll see the truth. Sometimes you need to look your fears in the eye. If something is off, I'll be right there to support you." That night, Elizabeth couldn't sleep. She thought of her father's disapproving glance whenever the subject of Damien arose, recalled how her mother once gently hinted that Damien's lifestyle might not mesh well with a stable marriage. Elizabeth had defended him passionately, saying he was just driven, not unfaithful. Now her worst suspicions were creeping in. Could Charmaine Delgado be more than just a helpful business associate? A brilliant late-morning sun bathed the rooftop terrace in golden light the next day. Waitstaff wearing crisp white uniforms circulated silver trays of champagne flutes, fresh squeezed juices, and hors d'oeuvres. Guests trickled in, each more glamorous than the last. The decor was a pastel dreamscape. Delicate pink, mint, and lavender ribbons dangling from tall arches of greenery. A harpist plucked gentle tunes in the corner. Charmaine Delgado made her entrance in a sleek mauve cocktail dress with diamond accents. Heads turned. She was radiant, playing the role of the gracious hostess to perfection, greeting influential socialites and business figures with warm smiles. She seemed to relish every polite question about her connection to the Blackwells. Her eyes roved over the crowd, waiting for Elizabeth. After a tense elevator ride, Elizabeth arrived on the rooftop, escorted by Bella. The moment Elizabeth stepped onto the terrace, a hush fell, followed by murmurs of admiration. She wore a flowing cream maternity gown, her face glowing despite her anxious heart. She placed a protective hand over her baby bump. Charmaine approached with outstretched arms, her smile a calculated blend of warmth and condescension. "Elizabeth, darling, I'm so glad you made it. I've been dying to meet you in person." Elizabeth plastered a polite smile. "Thank you for hosting this. It's quite lovely. I wanted to honor the mother of Damien's child." Charmaine emphasized the name with a slight smirk. "He's told me so much about you. We must chat more later, once you've greeted all these lovely guests." Elizabeth nodded, her brow furrowing. As she glanced around, she noticed many faces. Some were her distant acquaintances, others complete strangers. Few of her real friends were here. It felt like Charmaine's friends, Charmaine's alliances. Elizabeth suddenly felt alien in what should have been her moment. Across the terrace, a small group of women huddled together, whispering and glancing at Elizabeth. She felt the sting of their judgment. Rumors about Charmaine's relationship with Damien had clearly reached these circles, and many were watching to see how Elizabeth would react. Damien himself was noticeably absent. An hour into the festivities, Elizabeth tried to make the best of it. She politely thanked each guest for coming, endured the cooing over baby gifts, and fielded vague compliments about how lucky she was to have such a supportive friend in Charmaine. Bella hovered protectively nearby, noticing the forced smiles and the subtle slights. "Lizzie, do you want to sit down?" Bella asked gently. "You look pale." Elizabeth felt overheated, but she forced a reassuring smile. "I'm fine. Just need a bit of water." Bella guided her to a seat. As a waiter brought over a glass of ice water, Charmaine reappeared, dragging along a tall woman named Harriet McAllister, a flamboyant gossip columnist for one of the city's scandal rags. Harriet was known for her sharp tongue and sensational headlines. She was exactly the kind of presence Elizabeth had wanted to avoid. Charmaine purred Elizabeth. "Darling Harriet here would love a quick chat about your plans once the baby arrives. She's a dear friend and does these wonderful pieces on society families." Elizabeth's stomach churned. She felt cornered. She recognized Harriet's byline stories about extramarital affairs, hidden marriages, and love children that sold out tabloids. With a forced graciousness, Elizabeth offered a handshake. "Pleasure to meet you." Harriet's lipsticked grin was disarming. "My readers would be thrilled to know about your journey. We rarely see you in public. Are you hoping to step into more philanthropic work?" After the baby, Elizabeth recalled her ongoing involvement with children's art education. "I've always been philanthropic, Harriet. My work with underprivileged children is where my heart lies." Harriet's gaze flickered to Charmaine, as if searching for a bigger story. "And how has Ms. Delgado here helped you prepare for motherhood?" Elizabeth swallowed her discomfort. "She's kindly hosting this shower. It's very thoughtful of her." Charmaine smirked, hooking an arm around Harriet's. "Damien trusts me implicitly with these sorts of things. We've collaborated on many projects." Elizabeth's heart hammered. She wanted to scream. Instead, she smiled politely, feeling a swirl of nausea. Harriet's eyes gleamed, sensing tension. "Well, I look forward to writing something wonderful," Harriet said, in a tone that implied she wanted to dig up drama. "Thank you both." As Harriet wandered away, Charmaine leaned in close to Elizabeth, lips curling in a mocking smile. "You must be so exhausted. Sure you can handle all this excitement?" "Dear," Elizabeth met her gaze firmly. "I'm fine. I hope Damien arrives soon. This is after all our baby shower." Charmaine's eyebrows arched, a spark of triumph in her eyes. "Oh, he'll be here. Don't worry. He wouldn't miss his own event." From across the terrace, Bella flashed Elizabeth a worried look. Something was brewing, and they both sensed that Charmaine had not yet played her final card. Mid-afternoon, a wave of murmuring swept through the guests. Damien Blackwell entered, flanked by a couple of his business associates. He wore a tailored charcoal suit, exuding confidence, even as tension pinched the corners of his mouth. Elizabeth mustered a smile as she approached him. He leaned down to kiss her cheek, whispering, "You look beautiful." She forced a smile. "Thank you." Without missing a beat, Charmaine swooped in, greeting Damien with an intimate hug that lingered too long. Elizabeth's jaw tightened. Some guests averted their eyes uncomfortably. Others watched eagerly for signs of drama. Damien cleared his throat. "Charmaine, you've outdone yourself. This is spectacular." She beamed. "Only the best for your wife." Her lips curved at the word, as though it were a faint insult. "Now, dear guests," Charmaine said, raising her voice to gather attention. "May I have everyone's attention for a moment? We have a very special surprise planned for Elizabeth and Damien." Two waiters wheeled out a multi-tiered cake adorned with sugar roses and a shining gold bee for baby Blackwell. Gasps of admiration rose among the guests. Charmaine continued, "This baby represents a new chapter in the Blackwell legacy. We all know Damien is a man of ambition and power, but behind every great man is a great woman. Or so they say. Elizabeth, you're carrying his pride and joy, his future heir." Elizabeth swallowed, bracing for the spotlight. She felt a wave of relief that, at least in this moment, Charmaine's speech sounded oddly supportive. But then Charmaine's gaze flicked to Harriet McAllister in the crowd. Sometimes, Charmaine said, "The greatest test of love is how we handle adversity." And I think we all need to raise a toast to that. Because it's not just about the baby. It's about forging a future that might change the face of the Blackwell Empire forever. A hush fell as glasses were lifted. Elizabeth felt something ominous in Charmaine's words. Damien's expression was inscrutable, yet a slight twitch in his jaw betrayed tension. "Cheers!" Charmaine declared, her eyes flashing with triumphant challenge. Glasses clinked, but no one seemed entirely at ease. It was as though the moment was waiting for something to drop like the hush before a devastating storm. The cake was sliced. The harpist played softly, and guests milled about in the golden glow of early evening. Bella pulled Elizabeth aside gently, pressing a crisp document into her hand. "Lizzie, this came by courier for you at the hotel front desk. It's from your father." Puzzled, Elizabeth unfolded the paper. Her eyes scanned over a statement from her father's attorney referencing property transactions tied to Damien and Charmaine Delgado, purchased under a shell corporation. Elizabeth's heart stuttered. So it was true he was financially supporting Charmaine in more ways than a simple fling. There was mention of a property in Paris, high-end jewelry acquisitions, and hush money payments disguised as consulting fees. Tears pricked Elizabeth's eyes. Her father had, in his own cautious way, tried to protect her. This document spelled out a betrayal more devastating than any rumor. She glanced at Bella, who squeezed her hand in support. Elizabeth took a steadying breath. "I need to confront him. Now." Leaving Bella behind, Elizabeth navigated through the throng of guests. She found Damien alone near the bar. His phone buzzed on the counter beside him. He looked anxious, swirling the amber liquid in his glass. She handed him the document, voice quivering. "Damien, what is this?" He scanned the pages, color draining from his face. "Elizabeth, I can explain." Her voice rose, trembling with anger and heartbreak. "Explain how you're buying properties for this woman while I'm at home pregnant with your child. How many lies have I believed? Were you ever traveling on business or just off with her?" He tried to grab her hand, but she recoiled. "It's complicated. I was trying to protect you, the baby. My deals are huge. They require alliances." Charmaine was Elizabeth's eyes glistened. "You used me. I was carrying your child, hoping we'd be a real family, and you've been building a future with her." A hush spread as guests nearby picked up on the argument. Charmaine across the terrace watched like a hawk, lips curving into a small smile. Damien struggled for composure, but the tension in the air crackled. Elizabeth turned away, tears streaming. She was about to flee when Charmaine made her final move. Charmaine approached, feigning concern. "Elizabeth, darling, is something wrong?" Elizabeth glared at her. "Don't darling me. You know exactly what you've done." Damien looked on helplessly. Charmaine battered her lashes, turning to the onlooking crowd. "My friends, please, let's give Damien and Elizabeth some space." Then, in a lower voice, she added, "We're all on the same side, right? This is Damien's baby, after all." Elizabeth's voice cracked. "You have no business in my marriage." Charmaine smirked. "I hate to be the bearer of difficult news, but you might want to brace yourself." She placed a hand on her own stomach. "Because I'm pregnant, too." Gasps rippled through the guests like an electric shock. Elizabeth's face went ghostly pale. The words seemed to echo, bouncing off the marble columns of the terrace. Damien's eyes widened in horror. What Elizabeth breathed, barely able to stand. Bella rushed to her side, supporting her. Charmaine's smirk deepened. "Surprised Damien is going to be the father of my child? That's the real reason I planned this shower. A test run, if you will, for the bigger celebration." A mixture of shock and revulsion spread across the guests. Harriet McAllister had her phone out, already taking notes for a sensational article. Elizabeth's trembling hand rested on her own belly. The heartbreak was overwhelming. She thought of the many nights she prayed for this pregnancy to be safe, while her husband created a new life with Charmaine. The betrayal was too immense to put into words. Damien looked trapped like a man whose secrets had finally caught up to him. "Charmaine," he hissed. "You said you wouldn't." She flipped her hair triumphantly. "I changed my mind. You can't sweep me under the rug anymore, Damien. Especially not when I'm carrying your child. Everyone here deserves to know the truth." Elizabeth's legs weakened, and Bella guided her to a chair. The crescendo of scandalous whispers rose around them. For a moment, Elizabeth's world spun. Quietly, deliberately, Elizabeth stood again. She locked eyes with Charmaine, then glared at Damien. Her anger surged, adrenaline fueling her. She reached into her small clutch and pulled out a document, her official marriage license to Damien, along with a copy of their wedding certificate, sealed and signed by the state of Massachusetts. She raised her voice with as much composure as she could muster. "You think you can come into my baby shower, my life, and pretend you have some rightful claim to my husband? Let me make something clear to everyone. Here I am, Mrs. Elizabeth Redwood Blackwell, and that is not changing unless I say so." She held the documents up for the onlookers to see. "This is our marriage license, and we are legally married. This scandal you're trying to create will not erase that fact." Charmaine's composure wavered for a second, but she quickly regained her smugness. "Legally married or not, I'm carrying his child. That's a bond you can't break." Elizabeth's tears were gone, replaced by anger and the fierce protectiveness of a mother. "Get out of my face!" Damien tried to step between them. "Both of you calm down. This is not the place for..." Elizabeth turned on him with fury in her eyes. "Not the place, Damien. You let your mistress plan my baby shower. You humiliated me in front of all these people. You might have impregnated her too, and you have the audacity to say this is not the place." He reached for her hand, but she pulled away. The tension in the air was suffocating. Harriet, phone in hand, was practically salivating at the unfolding drama. The hush gave way to frantic whispers. Some guests discreetly slipped away, wanting no part in the public meltdown. Others stayed transfixed as though watching a train wreck they couldn't turn away from. Elizabeth staggered, pressing a hand to her belly. Bella, alarmed, quickly came forward. "We need to get you out of here, Lizzie." Charmaine sneered. "Oh, the poor dear. Maybe next time she won't be so self-righteous when she's married to a man who can't stay faithful." Elizabeth's voice trembled with outrage. "If I wasn't pregnant, I'd slap you right now." Bella, furious, snapped. "Let's go, Lizzie. This isn't worth risking your health." They made their exit, the stunned crowd parting like the Red Sea to let the pregnant wife pass. Charmaine's lips formed a triumphant smirk, as though she had won something. But in truth, she had just ignited a scandal that would haunt all three of them. Damien hesitated a moment, torn between chasing Elizabeth and dealing with Charmaine. Ultimately, he rushed after his wife, leaving Charmaine in the middle of the shell-shocked guests. Harriet McAllister wasted no time snapping a covert photo of Charmaine's smug face. Later that evening, social media was ablaze with rumors of the fiasco. Several guests posted cryptic updates. Never seen a baby shower end with such fireworks. Harriet McAllister teased a big expose fueling interest in every corner of Manhattan high society. Back in the penthouse hotel suite, Elizabeth was inconsolable. She had locked herself in the bedroom while Bella tried to calm her down, urging her to rest, to think of the baby. When Damien arrived, Bella blocked his entrance. "Lizzie doesn't want to see you right now." Damien spoke in a low, urgent voice. "I need to explain." "Please, Bella." Bella's eyes flashed with protective fury. "Explain how you lied to her for months, how you not only cheated on her but let your mistress host her baby shower." Just go, Damien. You've done enough. The door cracked open. Elizabeth's voice, weak from crying, emerged. Let him in, Bella. I need to hear what he has to say. Reluctantly, Bella stepped aside. Damien entered and found Elizabeth sitting on the edge of the bed. Her eyes read a box of tissues at her side. Lizzie, he began softly. I'm sorry. I never wanted this to happen. Charmaine. Well, she was more than a fling, but never meant to replace you. She looked up, anger and heartbreak shining in her eyes. Is she really pregnant? He hesitated. She says she is, but I haven't seen any medical proof. She blindsided me too. I swear I never intended for that to happen. Elizabeth let out a bitter laugh. So it's a possibility. I was home carrying our child while you were off, impregnating someone else. He sank to his knees beside her. There's no excuse. The truth is I got caught up. I was lonely traveling, dealing with pressure. We drifted apart, and Charmaine was available. I'm sorry. Tears streaked her face. Lonely, I was lonely too. I lost 2 babies before this one. Remember, I needed you, Damien. His voice cracked. I know, Lizzie. I failed you, and I'll spend the rest of my life making it right if you let me. She stared at him, an ocean of hurt welling in her eyes. Right now, I need space. I need to protect my baby. I don't know if I can ever trust you again. Bella re-entered, guiding Elizabeth into the next room. She needs rest, Damien. You should go. Damien stood, realizing the gravity of what he might lose. Lizzie, I love you. I love our child. I promise, whatever it takes. His voice trailed off. Elizabeth turned away, tears dripping from her chin. Just leave. While Elizabeth tried to recover from the emotional blow, Charmaine reveled in the aftermath. She sat in her own luxury apartment, scanning gossip websites. They'd already begun posting sensational headlines. Millionaire, real estate, mogul faces baby shower scandal, 2 women. 1 baby or 2. She sipped champagne. Smiling at the tabloid photos, one showed Elizabeth, tear-streaked, holding the marriage license aloft. Another captured Charmaine's triumphant smirk. But her phone rang with an unexpected call. Gerald Anderson, one of Damien's close business associates, an older man who had brokered many of Damien's biggest deals. Charmaine answered playfully, Gerald, darling. Calling to congratulate me. Gerald's tone was ice. You've made a spectacle of yourself and Damien. This fiasco is dangerous for the company. The board is worried about negative press. Damien's deals in Asia are already wavering. Investors don't like scandal. Charmaine rolled her eyes. Tell them to relax. All publicity is good publicity. People will forget in a week. Gerald's voice hardened. Not this time. Your stunts might cost billions. Damien's name is on the line, and so is yours if you keep pushing this. I'd advise you to disappear quietly or face legal consequences. Charmaine bristled. Legal consequences for carrying his child. Don't be absurd. I have my own resources. Damien won't let anything happen to me or the baby. Gerald's laugh was humorless. You're naive if you think he'll jeopardize his empire for you. My recommendation: lay low, handle this discreetly, and pray that Elizabeth doesn't drag you through court. That would be a bloodbath you can't win. The line went dead. Charmaine's smirk wavered. She realized with a chill that no matter how cunning she was, she might be playing a game against forces far larger and more ruthless. Still, she refused to be intimidated. Damien might be the father of her unborn child if she was indeed pregnant, and she intended to leverage that to her greatest advantage. Days turned into a week, and the scandal didn't die down, as Charmaine had predicted. If anything, it spread further. Media outlets that usually stayed away from private affairs devoured the story. Online forums buzzed with speculation. Damien's reputation took a hit, and so did the share price of some of his companies. In Connecticut, Elizabeth tried to find solace. She spent hours in her art studio painting her emotions, swirls of dark blues and fiery oranges depicting her turmoil. Bella stayed with her, ensuring she ate and rested. Late one afternoon, her father, Jonathan Redwood, arrived. He was a tall, stern man who rarely showed emotion. When Elizabeth saw him step into her living room, she burst into tears. She was Daddy's little girl, and her heartbreak was palpable. He held her gently. "I'm here now, Lizzie. We'll fix this." Through sobs, she recounted everything. The baby shower. Charmaine's bombshell, the public humiliation. Jonathan listened quietly, anger flashing in his eyes. "It's time to think about your future, not just your marriage," he said in a measured tone. "Damien's not the only one who can protect you financially. You have your trust fund, and your mother and I will support you. If you want a divorce, we'll ensure you and the baby are taken care of." Elizabeth's lips trembled. "I love him, Dad, but I can't be with someone who betrays me. Not if he won't change. I have to put my baby first." He squeezed her shoulder. "Your mother and I stand behind you. We'll consult with top lawyers. Whether you want a settlement or full custody, we'll figure this out." Elizabeth took a shaking breath. "I just need time to think. I don't want a drawn-out court battle. It's too much stress for the baby. But I won't let Charmaine ruin my life." Her father nodded. "Take all the time you need. We'll keep your options open." In that moment, Elizabeth felt a seed of strength. She might have lost faith in her marriage, but she wasn't helpless. She had her own resources and a powerful family behind her. She vowed not to let her child suffer because of Damien's mistakes. Meanwhile, Damien scrambled to contain the fallout. He held emergency meetings with his PR team and business partners. They devised a strategy to minimize damage, releasing a statement that personal matters are being handled privately and urging the media to respect the family's privacy. But the tabloids thrived on scandal, and every new rumor about Charmaine's alleged pregnancy fueled more headlines. Damien left countless voicemails for Elizabeth. She rarely answered, speaking only when absolutely necessary, mostly about her doctor's appointments. Desperate, he drove to Connecticut unannounced, ignoring his schedule of business calls. He found Elizabeth in the backyard garden, tending to a patch of hydrangeas. She looked serene, though heartbreak lingered in her eyes. Bella, seeing Damien approach, quietly slipped inside. Elizabeth rose, wiping her hands. "Damien." He swallowed hard. "Lizzie, I know you need space, but I had to see you." She shrugged. "I'm guessing your board is demanding that you fix this mess." He sighed. "They are. But that's not why I'm here. This is about us, our baby. I'm sorry I let Charmaine get so close. I was an idiot letting her host that shower. And if she's really pregnant, I'll deal with it." Elizabeth inhaled slowly, the weight of her sorrow evident. "I'm not sure there's an us to fix anymore, Damien. You humiliated me. You lied. You might have fathered another child. How do we come back from that? He stepped closer, voice cracking. By remembering what we had, what we still have. We've always been there for each other, especially after our miscarriages. Don't let Charmaine's scheming tear us apart. Elizabeth bit her lip. Memories of their wedding day fluttered in her mind, the quiet vows, the sense of hope. Could she forgive him? Finally she spoke. I can't just snap my fingers and pretend everything's okay. I need to see you genuinely change. I won't raise this baby in a broken home. But I also won't let you walk in and out as you please. It's all or nothing. He nodded, tears gleaming in his eyes. I understand. Whatever it takes, I'll do it. I'll cut Charmaine out of my life, if that's what you want. Elizabeth's gaze turned steely. What if she's pregnant with your child? You can't just walk away from that responsibility. Damien looked pained. I'll provide for that child, but that doesn't mean I have to be with her. I want my family with you. Elizabeth's throat tightened. Show me you mean it. Because if this is another lie, Damien, I promise you I will walk away for good. A week later, a private meeting was arranged. Elizabeth insisted on seeing Charmaine's proof of pregnancy before making any decisions. Charmaine agreed to a meeting, likely eager to flaunt her hold over Damien. They chose a neutral location, Gerald Anderson's stately townhouse in the Upper East Side, away from prying paparazzi cameras. Elizabeth brought Bella and her father. Damien arrived with 2 of his lawyers. Charmaine came with a small entourage, including a self-proclaimed celebrity attorney known for high-profile cases. Tension was thick. Jonathan Redwood set the tone. We're here to determine if Ms. Delgado is truly carrying Damien's child. If so, we'll discuss necessary arrangements and responsibilities. If not, we'll consider legal action for defamation and emotional distress. Charmaine, wearing a fitted designer dress that showed only a slight curvature at her stomach, crossed her legs confidently. How dare you threaten me? I have every right to be here to claim what's mine. One of Damien's lawyers interjected. We have a doctor on standby to conduct the appropriate blood tests and ultrasound. You agreed to this, Ms. Delgado. Charmaine hesitated. I want my own doctor. Someone I trust. Jonathan Redwood shook his head. We'll have an impartial physician, one neither side can manipulate. If you refuse, we'll assume you're lying. Charmaine's eyes flicked to Damien. You'd do this to me. Doubt my word. He sighed. You've given me every reason to doubt you, Charmaine. I need proof. She glowered, but eventually relented with a shrug of feigned indifference. Fine. Test me. But when it comes back positive, you'll regret questioning me. The group moved to a private office where a discreet physician waited. Under watchful eyes, Charmaine underwent a brief ultrasound and blood draw. The tension was palpable as they waited. Damien stood beside Elizabeth, glancing anxiously between her and Charmaine. Bella and Jonathan Redwood watched from the corner, arms folded in silent judgment. When the doctor completed the ultrasound, the screen showed a small embryo clearly visible, measuring about 9 weeks. Charmaine wasn't lying about being pregnant. The hush in the room deepened. A tear slipped down Elizabeth's cheek. Damien closed his eyes, exhaling a shaky breath. Charmaine sent them both a triumphant smile. Told you. The group reconvened in the townhouse parlor. The doctor confirmed Ms. Delgado is indeed pregnant, approximately 9 weeks along. Further blood tests will confirm paternity. though Ms. Delgado states Mr. Blackwell is the father. Elizabeth felt her world tilt again. Damien swallowed, looking at Elizabeth with guilt. Charmaine smirked at them both, an air of victory radiating from her. Confronted with the undeniable reality of Charmaine's pregnancy, Elizabeth felt a crushing weight descend upon her. She excused herself from the tense meeting, stepping out into the townhouse garden. The gentle sound of a fountain trickled over the hush of thick hedges. She tried to steady her breathing, fighting tears. Damien found her there, carefully approaching. Lizzie. His voice trembled with heartbreak and regret. "I'm so sorry." She turned eyes blazing with pain. "You've saddled me with a lifetime of sharing you with that woman and a child that's not mine. Do you realize how devastating this is?" He reached for her hand, voice thick with remorse. "All I can do is own my mistake. I don't want to lose you. Let me prove to you that I can be the husband and father you deserve." Elizabeth's tears flowed freely. The child in her womb kicked as though sensing her distress. "I don't want my baby to grow up in a broken home, but I refuse to be in a marriage with 3 people. He squeezed her hand gently. "I'll handle everything with Charmaine. We'll set up a trust for her child, ensure financial security. But my home is with you and our baby." She pulled away. "Words aren't enough anymore, Damien. Show me through your actions. If you think I'm going to live under the same roof with you while you juggle some arrangement with Charmaine, you're wrong. I'm staying here in Connecticut until I decide what's best for me and the baby." He nodded, tears glistening. "I understand." With that, they returned inside. Charmaine looked at them smugly. Jonathan Redwood gave her a cold stare. "We'll be in touch regarding legal arrangements. Until then, do not contact my daughter directly. Any communication goes through me or her attorneys." Charmaine flipped her hair. "Damien, you know how to reach me if you need anything, especially with the child's appointments." Elizabeth's heart clenched. Without another word, she left, followed by Bella and her father. Damien lingered behind a silent desperation in his eyes. The lines were drawn. The story exploded in the media once Harriet McAllister got wind of Charmaine's confirmed pregnancy. The tabloids had a field day with headlines like "Millionaire's double-duty wife" and "Mistress both pregnant." Late-night hosts made snide jokes. Online comments ranged from sympathy for Elizabeth to outright mockery of Damien's lack of fidelity. Elizabeth retreated to Connecticut, turning off her phone for days at a time, focusing on her health and painting to channel her emotional turmoil. Bella stayed with her, creating a buffer against the swirling press. Jonathan Redwood consulted with divorce attorneys, property lawyers, and PR strategists to weigh every possible outcome for Elizabeth. Damien did his part to distance himself from Charmaine, if only to placate Elizabeth and salvage his marriage. He cut off personal contact channeling communication through his lawyers. He tried to focus on his business acquisitions, but investors grew skittish. The scandal had tarnished his brand. He faced a crisis in Asia when a major partner threatened to pull out unless he resolved his domestic issues. Charmaine, for her part, attended a few public events, flaunting a small baby bump lapping up the media attention. She granted Harriet McAllister an exclusive interview, painting herself as the wronged woman who had accidentally fallen in love with a powerful man. She teased that she still believed Damien would choose her if Elizabeth walked away. Despite the bravado, she was beginning to fear the Redwood family's legal might. As Elizabeth neared her 8th month of pregnancy, her doctor worried about her elevated stress levels. She decided that for her baby's well-being, She needed clarity, even if it was painful. She summoned Damien to Connecticut for a final decision. They sat in the sunroom, where the afternoon light filtered through tall windows. Elizabeth wore a simple linen dress, her large belly a testament to how close she was to giving birth. Damien, looking weary and older than his years, sat across from her. Bella remained nearby, silently supportive. Elizabeth spoke first, her voice calm but resolute. "I've had time to think. My father is willing to help me file for divorce the moment I decide it's over. But I don't want to make a choice I'll regret just because I'm angry." Damien listened intently, clasping his hands. She continued, "I love you. I want our child to have both parents. But I won't be humiliated or lied to. If I stay, I need to know Charmaine is out of our life in every possible way, except for the child you'll need to support. That's unavoidable, but I will not have her at family events in our homes or near me." Damien's eyes brimmed with tears. "I swear, Lizzie, I'll do whatever it takes. I want to raise our child together, and I'll protect you from her. I made a mistake, a catastrophic one, but I refuse to lose you because of it." She inhaled shakily. "Charmaine won't go quietly. You've seen how she craves attention. She's going to hold this child over your head, and she might stir up more drama. If it becomes too toxic, I'm gone." He nodded. "I understand. I'll sign any post-nuptial agreement you want. We can set up a legal framework for Charmaine's baby. Child support visitation. Everything will go through attorneys. No personal involvement." Elizabeth's voice trembled. "I'm giving you one last chance, Damien. Don't betray me again, because I won't survive another heartbreak." He moved to kneel in front of her, gently placing his hand on her belly. "Thank you," he whispered, "for giving me a chance to be a better man for our baby." She placed her hand over his tears, spilling. "Don't waste it." A month later, Elizabeth's contractions began late at night. Bella drove her to the hospital, and Damien rushed from the city the moment he got the call, in the sterile glare of the maternity ward. Elizabeth labored through hours of pain, her screams echoing in the corridor. Finally, a healthy baby girl was delivered, wailing with robust life. Damien broke down in tears when he first held his daughter, whispering thanks and apologies to Elizabeth. Exhausted, she smiled weakly, letting him kiss her forehead. There was a sense of fragile unity in that moment. Over the next few days, Elizabeth stayed in the hospital, regaining strength. Damien remained by her side, doting on the baby. Bella and Jonathan Redwood visited, offering cautious support. A swirl of media inquiry buzzed outside, but the hospital maintained strict privacy protocols. The Redwood name carried weight, ensuring Elizabeth could recover in peace. As Elizabeth held her newborn daughter, warmth filled her chest. Love, hope, and determination to protect this precious child. She watched Damien cradle the tiny girl who had his dark hair and her soft features. For a moment it felt like they were a real family, untainted by scandal. But reality loomed. Charmaine was nearing the midpoint of her pregnancy, and she would soon deliver a child who shared Damien's DNA. That future weighed heavily on Elizabeth's heart, even as she tried to savor the bliss of new motherhood. Elizabeth decided to move back to the Connecticut estate, permanently away from the city's gossip. Damien agreed, hoping to rebuild their relationship in the tranquility of the countryside. He spent more days commuting between the city and the estate, determined to show Elizabeth he was committed. Legally, Charmaine's child was recognized. Through carefully negotiated documents, she received a comfortable allowance, medical expenses, and a guarantee of ongoing child support once the baby was born. She tried to push for more face-to-face involvement, but Elizabeth refused. Damien kept his distance, only communicating through lawyers and the occasional phone call regarding medical updates. Charmaine's bitterness grew as she watched from the sidelines. She had expected a grand romance or a highly visible co-parenting arrangement that kept her tethered to Damien's life. Instead, she was relegated to the outskirts, a footnote in his empire. Though wealthy by association, she was still alone, pregnant with a man who'd chosen his wife over her. It wasn't the victory she'd imagined. For Elizabeth, life became a delicate balance, caring for her newborn daughter, grappling with the trauma of betrayal, and trying to trust Damien again. Each day that he returned from the city, without any sign of infidelity, was a small victory. She wondered if she could ever fully forgive him, but she loved him enough to try. Months passed, and the scandal gradually faded from public view, replaced by fresher celebrity gossip. Elizabeth and Damien shared quieter days at the Connecticut estate, cherishing the baby girl who had brought them a renewed sense of purpose. Charmaine eventually gave birth to a healthy boy, then drifted into a more private life when headlines ceased to favor her story. Still, the memory of that explosive baby shower lingered like a cautionary tale. In their elegant living room late at night, Elizabeth sometimes caught Damien gazing at her with a mixture of regret and gratitude. Their marriage was far from perfect, and trust was a fragile plant that needed constant nurturing. But they had chosen to move forward together. And that's the story of the millionaire who let his mistress host the baby shower, only for his pregnant wife to show up with their marriage license. Love betrayal and a chance at redemption if they can hold on. Thank you for joining us on this roller coaster ride of secret affairs, surprise pregnancies, and unexpected confrontations. If you were as captivated by this tale of love betrayal and redemption as we were, please hit the like button and let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Share this video with your friends who crave juicy drama and unforgettable twists. And don't forget to subscribe to our channel, because we'll be bringing you even more riveting stories that shine a light on the hidden scandals lurking beneath the glittering surface of high society. Your support means the world to us, and we can't wait to keep you on the edge of your seat with our next jaw-dropping tale.